Yo, so it's been a while. I'm Noah at Perpetual Shelves, I believe is my name. I'm just kidding. Nothing has happened. It's just been a while. I lost a little bit of motivation to post just because I my school semester started back in August and just busyness, Like I had a job while I was posting my first little batch of videos about like the YouTube drama. Then I ended up stepping back from that job and then putting more time into kind of like a seasonal role. And then my seasonal job cut every seasonal employee way sooner than they anticipated. So I was unemployed for about a month, just kind of chilling, focusing on school. And then I recently got a job, and it pays okay. It'll work with my school schedule. Other than that, it's been about the same. I actually have not really been taking, I haven't actually really been participating in a lot of booktube. Not for anything real negative. I think I was a little bit of burnout. I also, one of my most popular videos is about YouTube drama and is there like a response video to a YouTube drama. And I'm not like the biggest fan of that because I knew going in that there's going to be people who watch that and they agree or disagree, but that's just not a sustainable model, for lack of better words. So I was just like, my views have kind of dwindled, obviously, and I don't post regularly, obviously, which is not like a big deal for me, just because like I definitely notice it. But as someone who works and goes to school, to be honest, I just kind of like talk when I feel like I have things to say, and if I'm gone for a little while, that's fine. That's just gonna happen. There's probably a chance I post this video and then I don't post for another month. Also, my camera's kind of placed funny, so this video might be like lopsided, but I think that adds character, I guess. Just got over some sinus infection stuff. But yeah, I guess I've just been trying to read as much as I can. The lighting in here is terrible. I've been playing some video games. I've been doing another playthrough of Red Dead. I've only actually beat Red Dead 2 once. And then I've had another playthrough where I got like probably 70% of the story. But it was like I'd play it and then a month later I'd play it again and then do like a mission or two. And I was just like, you know what? I'm going to start from scratch and just like play it as much as I can and really work through it. I always felt like I kind of rushed through the game. And so right now I'm definitely taking my time. Another new thing with me is I write articles for a magazine at my college, and it's fun. It only pays $15 per article, which university stuff never pays that great. But unfortunately, I'm not sure how much longer I can do it because with the job I just recently got, I'm not going to be available for the pitch meetings, like the idea meetings, and so I feel like that's going to become kind of a thing, which that's something I can communicate about, and they may just let me kind of do work, from behind the scenes without showing up physically or anything. But yeah, I just kind of wanted to come on here and give you like a reading update. It's crazy because I feel like my reading has slowed down, but that's not necessarily the case. I've had that transition where you go from reading everything you want to read to reading things that are for classes, which is a common student problem. Like half the stuff I've read in the last couple of months has been just straight up like school. I mean, I've only been in school this last semester for probably like a month now, but I'll get straight into that. So the first one, the lighting in here is probably gonna suck. Awkward camera angle. I'm off to the side. First one I read for my like medieval history class kind of thing was The Lays of Marie de France. Honestly, this is pretty cool. I don't want to say it's like fairy tales, but it's kind of like it sets up with Marie de France talking about how she heard all these fairy tales and heard all these stories told orally, and now she's going to sit down and record them. And so there's like, every story is probably only like 5 pages max, other than the last one. I think the last one's pretty long. But there's a tale about a guy who goes missing for a couple days a week, and his wife's sitting there like, "Where are you going, babe?" And then he says that he turns into a werewolf. It's things like that. There's a guy who turns into a bird and flies into like his lover's little cabin or little like hole she's holed up in. My cat's in the background. It's like a really early representation of like myth and beasts, and it's really cool. Honestly, like this is one of those probably like obscure Penguin classics that you don't read unless you have a class or something. But it's really fun. I think it's like $18 on Penguin. It's like 140 pages, I believe, so it's not really like a long read, but you can honestly sit there and make a lot of it. So the next one I read is definitely something that a lot of people have read, whether in high school or further in college, is Beowulf, and this is a dual language edition translated by Howell D. Chickering Jr. And as you can see, this is fun. I don't know anything about Old English, but you can get like the English translation on one side, and then I almost said Norse, but then the Old English on the other side. And this was actually pretty cool. There's a lot of digressions in like the middle section of Beowulf that I wasn't super impressed with and didn't really think much of. Like one guy goes on a tangent about another warrior, and then the warrior that he's talking about had like a whole journey, and then it's like goes straight back to Beowulf. But other than that, the first part, I would say if you cut it into thirds, the first part and the third part of Beowulf are pretty action packed, and once you kind of get in the role, I've never read the Heaney translation, which I think is like the most popular or one of the most popular ones. One of my classmates picked that up from the library, and I had bought the edition I just showed you, and her Heaney translation was so like dry and just was like da 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 da, every line. That's a bad way to explain it, but this one is like, sometimes it's like the medieval version of like purple prose, like borderline that, which I actually enjoyed. So, at first you're just like, I'm not used to reading this. It's kind of like going back and reading Shakespeare, where you're like, what he's saying, but it sounds weird. But once you get past that barrier, Beowulf is a pretty interesting story. I have a double chin. That's crazy. Another one I'm reading is kind of boring, but it's proved to be fairly interesting so far. I rented it or checked it out from my university's library. It's a really old book, or an old edition. I think it's from like the 1930s or something. Like it's one of those like hardcover books where there's just like nothing on it. This is 1962. I was way off. This is actually, let me see. Let me show it off. I gotta flip it. I gotta see what the actual title is. This is The History of the Peloponnesian War by Thucydides. Oh shit. There you go. This is not gonna focus. Hold on. But yeah, no. So literally, like I said, it's just like one of those books. Nothing on it, no jacket. It's proven to be pretty interesting. I definitely feel like there's a little bit of a disconnect just because I'm not well versed. But there was a booktuber I watched that just kind of happened to glaze over the Peloponnesian War and how history is recorded between Herodotus. I feel like I said that weird. And then Thucydides, and how Thucydides is more like science-based, I believe. And then Herodotus was more, I don't want to say entertainment, but maybe like taking liberties with certain things. Whereas Thucydides was like, this is exactly what happened and this is why. Instead of taking things and running with it or embellishing if he felt needed. I don't really remember much of what I read. This has kind of been one of those reads where I feel like it would be cool to know and be relevant, but I'm definitely only reading like I'll read like couple sections, set a timer for like 30 minutes and then read it a few times a week. Other than that, pretty decent so far. I'm not super far in. There's 4 parts. There's like 4 of these. And this is like 400 pages. It's 400 pages, but it's just kind of like small text, not a lot of text on any page. Kind of like older book, older book vibes. I just knocked something over. Yeah. The next book I bought, I actually have no idea. I have no clue. Nothing. I know nothing about the author. I've seen this book. I think the paperback edition just released fairly recently. I might be wrong. I think it was like a popular bestseller, which I don't normally buy. But there's a certain tie to this book that I have, location-wise. And I was wanting to burn some money and was like, oh, I'll just do it anyway. And that is Come and Get It by Kylie Reed. This is a book I just bought. I haven't read it, so I'm not going to expand much on it. One of the characters is from a place I'm from, and that's about it. Another book I read that I thoroughly enjoyed was the Oedipus Cycle by Sophocles. Antigone, Oedipus the King, and Oedipus at Colonus, or not? Is it Colonius or Colonus? I don't remember. I actually really enjoyed those. Antigone was my favorite. And I did the great thing of standing in a room and reciting it, or like saying it out loud, and it gets pretty intense. I also really like the whole is it Tiresias, however you say it, the guy that's blind and he has like the little boy lead him. That's so metal. And I was also like, oh, that's crazy, because he says himself, I've lost my sight, but my other senses are enhanced. And I was like, that's kind of a trope that I've heard about over the years that has existed like through the annals of time, is like you lose your sight, but you can like read minds and see the future and like foreshadow things, which I think is super cool. I'm still working my way through Wallace Stegner's biography very slowly. I read like, it's no joke, like 1 chapter every couple days. My reading is kind of his standstill. Not anything bad. I think it's just school taking up my time. I want to address what I said earlier about pulling back from the BookTube community. I don't know. This sounds terrible, but I think because of the drama that I commented on and like got popular over, I have one video that got like, I think it's like 3.5K views, 4K views. Like I almost don't even like that it's popular. But I don't know. It's weird because, okay, I don't know. I'm going to try to work out my own. I'm going to try to spit therapy talk at the camera. But, I just kind of had a moment where I was like, the BookTube community does a lot of great things, and there's a lot of great people that, to be honest, for a while I used as just to like hear what, I like to see what makes people tick and what their interests are. And so, and at one point I was subscribed to like, I'm talking like 50, 60, actually that might be a little much, maybe like 30, 40 BookTube channels. And then it just hit me. I was like, man, I only really watch like 5 of these people, 10 of these people. And there was an imbalance at one point where my YouTube subscriptions were like 90% BookTube, and then like almost 0 gaming. And like I don't talk about this a lot, but gaming and reading are like my 2 passions. And so I just noticed, I was like, I'm getting this influx of BookTube content, and most of it I'm not resonating with. And by that, I don't mean that I don't enjoy it. There's channels out there that I love their tastes. My tastes align with them. Obviously I don't know these people personally, but I'm sure they could chat your ear off and you'd learn a thing or two. But it just got to the point where I was like, man, like I am confident in my own tastes enough at this point, and I am putting more I am taking the initiative in terms of what I feel like I want to read, instead of just letting the YouTube algorithm dictate what I'm supposed to read, if that makes sense. Like the YouTubers or the booktubers I still subscribe to. I love what they have to say, and at the very least, they are a really great person to take a recommendation from. But it just hit me one day. I was like, man, like I don't really watch any like other content that I'm passionate about. So for a while, I had all my eggs in the booktube basket, and I think I kind of burnt myself out. Not on reading, but just like it was a overstimulation. I feel like gets overused sometimes, but I feel like it was just an overstimulation of content. A part of me subconsciously was maybe thinking I need to slow down on the amount of just talking about books. And maybe I'm overthinking this, but I just was like, I feel so much more confident about my own tastes that I'm willing to almost take a step back from BookTube and not watch a lot of it in order to let my own mood and let my own intuition dictate what I'm going to read, instead of relying on just videos of just people, what they like. And there's nothing wrong with watching a video about what somebody likes. Obviously, if you take an issue with that, I feel like it's kind of weird. But instead of trying to conglomerate some massive list through watching 30 booktube channels, I've cut it down to like 10 or less. And honestly, I think every single one of those channels has like 20K or less subscribers. And this is probably the most judgmental part of what I'm about to say, but it's just like a lot of the bigger channels, and you can't knock the hustle, but a lot of the bigger channels, they all end up coming back to the same books, same publishers. Whereas I like to dive into what's popular, but also take time to give smaller publishers some light. Read a book that I know is really weird and obscure and is probably dry and boring, but hey, I want to know XYZ about this subject, so I'm going to read it. And so a lot of my booktube time, and I've actually noticed this with other booktubers I like one of them, I'm not going to name names, but one of them I watch him. I feel like him and I are in the same boat, where we used to put out a video like once a week, and then now it's like once a month. And it's just, we have other interests, and that's fine. Like gaming, I've gamed for the last like almost 30 years. I'm almost 30 years old. I mean, I'm like on that end of the spectrum. I'm not like 29, but and so I kind of just was like, there's an imbalance. I'm taking in too much of one thing, and I want to kind of get back to the roots of like other hobbies I've had, like metal detecting, fishing, gaming. So like, I will admit, I don't read as much as I did 3 months ago. I still read every single day, but I also play Red Dead, or I'll hang out with my girlfriend, or I'll play NCAA football. And for a little bit, I had that weird guilt that we all feel with, you're like, oh, I got to read like an hour. Oh, yesterday when I only read 10 pages. I probably could have read 50. But yeah, and this is not a video of just me like crapping on BookTube. It's a great place. There's way more pros and cons. It's like social media. You'll see the loudest voices are often the stupidest. Sorry, but there's always that sweet apple that grows from the tree, that you're gonna find. And that's just my take. Like, I don't think I'm gonna post a lot on this channel going forward. And if that loses me a subscriber or two, that's fine. But for the people who watch, and for the people who I like there's Odie, there's Carl at Please Read Your Books, Eric at Gronsky Books, shoot, I shouldn't have even named names because I've forgotten a bunch of them. But there's like a select, I think it's 7 to 10 booktubers that I watch. Oh yeah, Casey's reading. KC, the letters, Casey is reading. A lot of them are like, I want to jokingly say they're like part-time booktubers because they don't ever post regularly, but they're like the ones I resonate with the most. But like even then, I mean, if I'm busy, I'm just not watching booktube anymore. I go to the bookstores I go to, and instead of like, oh, I remember what so and so said, I've just been like going in blind and letting my intuition speak because I feel like that's the that's how you deep read. I don't know what this video is gonna be called. I don't know what this video is really about. But I guess it's just like an update. I'm doing homework right now. I actually stopped doing homework. I have to critique poetry as part of my class, and I was doing that, and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna take a little break and just jump on BookTube and say what's up. But yeah, thank you for watching. I may be back. I might do a review on the Wallace Stegner biography. I have no clue. I'm probably not qualified to talk about that, but I might do it. Thanks.